Now to the women's road race. Very different parcours. 135 Ks long. They don't do Fuji. They don't do Mikuni Pass, which
Crazy.
It's crazy, but it's also a good thing for the competitiveness of the race.
It depends.
No, it doesn't. If they have Mikuni and Fuji,
yeah, Mikuni, yes,
Van
but I
Vleuten and
think
Van der Breggen right
Fuji's
away.
a better option. Like it doesn't happen often when an Olympics parcours is actually like a very climby parcours. We've just coincidentally had it being Rio and this one right now, but I think it's Paris next time. You're not going to find mountains in Paris, so it's going to be more likely to be either a sprint or a reduced thingy in Paris in a few years. So I would have liked to see it a bit more like with a decisive climb, because I feel like the Douchy Road is not as decisive as possible. What do you think?
Douchy Road. Is that how you say it?
I don't know.
We're gonna call it that from now. Douchy Road. All right. It's 4.3 Ks at 6.7%. It's the first main climb. We have rollers before it. We then have the Kagasaka Pass. It has a different gradients and length here on the readout. 1,800 meters at 5.5%. Maybe it's a different one. And then they do a descend, and then they have rolly terrain and like 1,500 meters at 5.8%, which is uncategorized in the lead-in. So there's lots of climbs in the lead-in to the finish, which is slightly draggy uphill. I mean, frankly, if the Netherlands team don't win this race, they shouldn't be allowed back in the country. In the betting, they're first, second, third, and fourth favourites in the betting, Van der Breggen, Van Vleuten, Vollering, Vos. The only reason they're all at 3s to 8s is because people don't know which of them they're going to try and win with. It's an outrageously stacked team, Benji. How do you think they're going to ride it?
Well, we need to look at the rider types in their team. We know that Van Vleuten is more the brutal force on the climbs and forces attacks and so forth, keeps it up from the bottom of the climb to the top to make sure as little possible riders follow her over the top. But then you've got Vos and Vollering. Vos being the rider that is the least climby of the four, I would say, and has a huge kick at the end. Vollering a bit more climby than Vos, but also has a kick at the end, but a slightly lesser kick unless the race is very difficult towards the end, then that could come close together. We saw that at La Course, for example, where SD Works had to make the race very hard to make sure Vos had less energy for the final sprint, and therefore Vollering was able to take that home. And if the race is not as hard, then I think Vos has a bit of an upper, like a bit more favoritism around her than Vollering, and that's how that can be decided. But the problem there is that if you go ham with Van Vleuten on the climb, then you might put Vos in danger. So you kind of have to look at everything there. And then you've got Van der Breggen, who I think will just attack early because, this is her goal. The Olympics, right? Like she's been looking at it for ages. And I think that she actually decided to do this extra year because it was postponed towards this year. And as a consequence, she wanted to end her career in the year that the Olympics happened. I think that they've got a problem in that. They've got riders that basically, they're a very strong team. They're extremely strong individually, but I have no clue how they're going to be compatible. Because if Van Vleuten goes hard, Vos gets in danger. If Van der Breggen goes, then the others have to sit up in the group, which is honestly a very solid tactic. I dare to say that's how you should play it. But what if Van der Breggen gets caught? Van der Breggen, is she going to ship away her chances at winning? I think that she's a pretty respected and kind person, so probably she will be like, okay, this is the best way we could win. I need to like control now and make sure Vos or our teammate at SD Works Vollering can take it in the sprint. So yeah, I think there's a few things they can do, but I think Van Vleuten going ham at the start might chip into what the others can do.
That's exactly what I think they'll do. They're going to attack with Van Vleuten, not pull. I think attack, then sit on with the others. If the race is raced so hard that Vos is dropped, then I honestly, like, it's going to be hard for other teams to drop Demi Vollering, and keep her away as well, because we have this long run into the finish, especially when you know that Van der Breggen will be sitting on. If they catch Van Vleuten, they will sit on. So I see Vollering making it to this finish no problem at all, really. And it's whether Vos is there. I think Van der Breggen, she won this in 2016, the road race, right? I think she's just wanting to get the TT on her Palmares.
Oh
I
yeah, you're
think
right.
if it's together, if it's Vollering there or Vos, she will lead it out in the finish like she did in Liège, keep it together and have Vollering or Vos lead them out for the sprint. I think the second strongest team is the Australian team. Brown, Giganti, Amanda Spratt, Tiffany Cromwell. It's their main option is Brown going super early, I think, and just re-attacking from a break is their best option. I think the non Dutch rider who is the best is Longo Borghini with a team
Yeah.
of Paladin, Bastianelli, Cavalli. Not much climbing support, Paladin apart from Paladin, who is good, but it's what I'm seeing. Benji is basically a group of Brown and Spratt and Longo Borghini having to chase and Diagnan having to chase a Dutch rider on their own, and then if they catch them, they get re-attacked. I think it's who's the dark horse you think somehow they could pull this off?
Yeah, it's very difficult to say because, like, I think Ruth Winder is someone I'm looking to as a dark horse, but
True.
like
She's
in the
retiring.
grand scope of things, there's like not too much where I say, "Oh, Netherlands isn't winning this." So it's like for me, there's a 90% chance that we have a Dutch winner, and if there isn't, then they fucked up. Like, well, with that team, you need to win. Like, otherwise, it didn't work together well. So that's how I see this race. Obviously, that's a very simplistic way of looking at it, but those are the facts. You said it, Grace Brown, perfect candidate to go for a sneaky attack because she's got that ability to go on the flat section. But if she does that, if she has a rider from the Netherlands with her in that attack, then it's becoming interesting because then you don't know what's going to happen. But would that be a tactical failure if, for example, the Netherlands is with 4 in the elite group and we're with about, I don't know, 10 kilometers to go? Grace Brown goes for the attack and the Netherlands has one rider with her. You think that that's a tactical mistake because you'd say, oh, we should keep things together, and have the Netherlands outsprint the others at the line. So stuff like that is something I'm curious to see what will happen. I'm extremely curious to the climbing ability of Norsgaard because she's gotten over proper hills in the third stage of the Healthy Aging Tour over that Vanberg like 20 times. What was it? 10 times probably. I'm
Yeah, that was
exaggerating
hard.
slightly.
That was
That's a
steep.
hard climb, steep. It's not as insane as like, well, I'm calling the Dushi Road insane. That's not true. Like, it's not the hardest of climbs. So, like, what if you get her over it? Like,
They can't
what
go
if
to the finish with her. They can't.
exactly? Then Netherlands needs to attack even more because like Netherlands needs to make it relatively hard to make sure Northgard doesn't get over that climb.
They've stuffed it before though, Ben. Do you remember
Yeah, you're
Diedrichsen?
right.
Who did she win in front of? They had like a
No
stacked
clue.
team. I think it was Kirsten
Kirsten Wild?
Wild.
Yeah.
Kirsten Wild, yeah. And they had a stacked team, but they just set it up for the sprint and then Diedrichsen beat her in the sprint and then hasn't done much since. But I don't think you can risk going to the finish with Norsgaard. She's super, super fast. And I think you're right. It's when you look at this parcours, it's really not that hard after they got 40 Ks of not that hard after Kagasaka, and even Kagasaka is not the steepest. So I think Van Vleuten and Van der Breggen got to light it up early on Douchy and get rid of anyone that's quick and then reduce it to a group of 8 with like Paladin, Longoborghini, Diagnan, Spratt Brown. Sorry if I'm missing anyone. Ultra Ludwig will be there, of course, and then work them over after that and
Do
try and,
you
yeah, sorry, go on.
you believe in the ability of Italy getting a Bastianelli over this climb? Because we know she's good at sprinting, but when it comes to results, it's very like inconsistent. She's gotten 10th at Strade Bianche before, which does show that she can decently climb last year. So it's not that long ago. This year it has been 35th at Amstel is not a horrible result, but it's not like this year has been showing extreme climbing ability. But like, do you consider the Dushi Road so difficult that it will drop riders like Bastianelli?
Yeah, I think we always look at it. I think when you look at the women's parcours, you need to add a couple of percentages to the
Yeah,
gradients to appreciate how the race is ridden because of they're not going to do it at the same speed as the men, so the drafting is less important. And we see a
yeah,
5K 6% climb can split a women's race apart completely. That's why I think if they have Makuni like we saw in Burgos when AVDB and hit the jets on Laguna
Yeah.
Stenaya, like it's all over. So Douchy, I think, can be very selective, to be honest. And if one of Van Vleuten or Van der Breggen light it up, but then they have to commit to like a 60k solo, Benji, 55k solo at that point, which Van Vleuten has obviously done, not so much this year. Although she won, did she win Flanders solo?
No, it was a 2 women's sprint, if I recall correctly.
Who won Tour of Flanders this year?
No, she did win solo.
Yeah, she
Okay,
won
26
solo,
seconds.
and
You're
there was
right. You
dysfunction
got a lie.
behind.
Yeah.
I will laugh. I bet you. How much do you want to bet, Benji, that Grace Brown and Ludwig will be trying to bring back Van Vleuten on the flatter section? Lisa Longoborghini doesn't pull again.
I don't want to bet on it, but it's a likely thing to happen. We've seen these things before this year. I'm just extremely curious how it's going to be played by teams that want to ruin the Netherlands here. What do you think? Who do you think has the biggest ability of upsetting the race
Target.
and the dominance?
Target.
Okay.
Yeah. Just because, I mean, you just don't know. She's literally not raced this year. She hasn't done a road race this year. She's done the American National Champs ITT. The reason why I say Dygert is because she is a freak. Like she can. The problem is the handling, I guess, and she's barely been road racing. But in terms of like physiological dominance, she is up there with the Netherlands women. The problem is the parcours suits them a little bit more. She's bigger. She's like 176 centimeters. This is harder than Harrogate, which was still quite hilly, a lot of accumulated climbing. But I think if Dyger's there with them, which I mean, maybe she will be. She'll be peaking. This is her goal, the Olympics. If she's there with them in the last 30Ks, I'd be pretty nervous if I was the Netherlands team because she can attack on one of those rises and is a super strong time trial rider. Like she was going to beat Van der Breggen easily in the TT last year, Benji, when she crashed.
Yep, true.
People don't forget that, how strong she is. Like we think of AVDB as a freak. Well, Dygert was going to beat her last year, but the problem is her handling. So they can pressure her on that descent as well. I don't care if it's not technical, they can pressure her. So who's your dark horse to upset them?
Well, every time you ask me that throughout the year, it's Uttrup Ludwig, but like I find it difficult because I think that she's a candidate for something like bronze. She's had a proper sprint in the likes of Burgos that one stage that she ended up winning even. And as a consequence, I do see her as one of those riders that could, in a reduced bunch sprint to third or something. But winning is going to be very difficult. I don't think she can get away on this parcours unless she's very lucky when it comes to no cooperation in a certain group. But it's unlikely that the Netherlands doesn't have more than one rider in the group. So I think that as a consequence, they will likely have enough to pace any attack back after that Douchy road. And why wouldn't they even play it offensively? And that's the difficulty there. Who's my dark horse? Yeah, I'm guessing Ruth Winder, because she had a decent sprint at Brabant. So was it against Vollering that she had that
Yes.
1 centimeter sprint? So you never know that it's an upset in the sprint. Then it could be someone like Ruth Winder, but I see it very unlikely personally. But I could be wrong. Hey, we can all be wrong.
My proper dark horse pick is Niewiadoma. I think she's been climbing so well this year. She's been, I think, the best initial 30-second punch on like a 1K 6% climb. She's always got separation to the other women in Ardennes. Will they be able to drop her and keep her dropped on Douchy and Kagasaka? No. But there could be Van Vleuten up the road, so she's going to have to be chasing is the problem. But she's a good dark horse. She's deep in the betting, and she's up there with, she's a top rider who's looked good on this sort of finish. If you take away the start and just look at the last 25 kilometers, she is good. The problem is if Van Vleuten's a minute ahead or Van der Breggen. But my pick to win is Van Vleuten, Benji.
Oh, okay.
Solo.
Okay. My pick to win is Marianne Vos. I think that it's not hard enough for her to drop her completely. I've seen her get over bigger climbs than Dushi Road, and
Yeah, for sure.
I do think that she can survive it. And I think the people that are more likely to drop her are her own teammates
That's
at
what
the
I think's
Netherlands.
happening.
And that's a difficult part, like you're right. Van Vleuten could go for the attack. Van der Breggen could go for the attack, and she'll be forced to sit up. And that's what could happen, and that's what might ruin her chances. And it's also a logical move to try and attack with Van der Breggen on the flat section if no one else is. But the second that someone else attacks, I'd expect Van der Breggen to fall into that domestique role and try and get Vollering and Vos to the line. But then, what do you do? Who do you sprint for? I think Vos, personally, but why not both? Wanty style.
I think, just do a hard lead out and let them go for it, and they'll probably take gold and silver, most likely. But again, Olympics, we've seen upsets, we've seen big stuff ups. We've seen the Netherlands team lose from unlosable situations.
Yeah.
I'd love to see Sarah Giganti, the young Australian, do well. 20 years old, national champion.
She's got a kick, right?
In 2019. More of a climber.
Okay.
More of an engine, to be honest. Like, she likes to go solo early. So yeah, I'd like to see how she goes. I think. Yeah, just what about your Belgians, Benji? Kopecky, is it too hard for her?
Well, at Strade, she was climbing very well until she had a puncture. So then she collapsed completely because of the puncture. Then she had a puncture on the final of RVV. So at this point, every single situation where I could see her climb well, she had ended up with a puncture. So it's very hard to say. It wouldn't surprise me if she gets over it, to be honest, but nah, it's gonna be hard. I have a hard time believing that she can get there. It's like on the same level as Norsgaard for me. Like, they can both get over that initial climb if the race is not ridden at full force there, but most likely it will. And that's where the danger lies. But I'd love to see them get over it, because then it becomes more tactical, and then I think it's more likely to see the Netherlands go for attacks than try and get Vos to the sprint against Norsgaard and Kopecky, for example.
Yeah, maybe it's really slow, and we see riders like Corin Rivera and Lippert in the group, and then maybe everyone else starts attacking the Netherlands in that last 20Ks. That would be the best outcome for interest in the race. That would be awesome, because Rivera, she actually just won in the Giro Rosa. There was like a 2K 6% climb. She got over and then won, I think, the sprint afterwards. Maybe we see Mavi Garcia on a long ranger as well, but the descents never help her. But yeah, let us know down below what you see from the women's race. As the Netherlands team, an absolute lock. That's what it looks like on paper. It's like combining SD Works and adding in Van Vleuten is always going to be pretty unfair.
And Vos.
And Vos. It's an embarrassment of riches. Yeah, we hope you enjoyed this Olympic road race preview. We'll have the TT preview tomorrow. If you want to support the podcast, you can subscribe to the YouTube channel if that's where you listen, or give us a review or a rating on podcast players. They help out massively, the reviews and ratings, or just give us a follow on Twitter at Lanterne Rouge CP. But we'll see you with the Olympics TT tomorrow. Ciao.